So the Jersey Bee began by doing an information ecosystem assessment, like a lot of nonprofit public service news organizations. And one of the things we heard in our listening was that there were a lot of information providers in the community that weren't whose services or resources that they were providing or facilitating weren't making it to people. Like it was like really challenging to navigate all of the sources of information that the person needs to stay informed about their community. So when we were doing our social listening, we basically said like, what is the way for us to take the assets we're identifying in the ecosystem, figure out a way to scalably review all of them, identify what's relevant, verify information, and report it out and distribute it. So the first place that a lot of that lives is in our feed, where we collect the things we're following. So we have Facebook pages, school district websites, New Jersey news publishers. So for the sake of this example, I'm going to grab a news item. Here we go. So Tap into Newark reported on someone's passing. What we'll do is we'll identify a piece of news that we feel is relevant. It's not necessarily going to be like what is in the headline or in the lead. Sometimes it's a little bit like requires a little bit of digging, but in this case, it's pretty straightforward. This particular person passed away. What I'll do is I'll select the most relevant information. I'll open Airtable. I'll click harvest. That content gets pulled in. I'm going to select the source.
And it gets pulled in because it's a highlighted text, right? And that's one of the Airtable web clipper settings. Mine has that too. Okay.
Correct. So if I need to add a source to catalog, if this is a new source, we do that here. We select the regions that this is for. In this case, it seems like it was just Newark, unless this person was involved in some other program anywhere. If it's an event, we could trigger some other automations that start when dates are added to this. And then the status influences whether or not it gets seen by certain automations. We hit add record. Show on Airtable. Perfect. So that created a record at Airtable here, which is the content from the news item. Right now, because we harvested a news item and didn't give it a date, there are Zapier automations running to write a draft summary of this news item. If it requires more, typically there's like a very specific piece of information that we want to uplift. So it's either this lead or like maybe it is 6 or 7 paragraphs summarized.
Right, where you want to throw like a particular paragraph further down plus the intro. You just copy and paste it into the entry, right?
We can copy and paste it into the entry. I could just select the whole thing. So based on the Airtable filter, here we go, from a formal councilman. Okay, great, perfect. So we were just looking at that record. It did not have a draft body. It did not have a draft news headline. So now we have a draft body and a draft news headline. If it were an event, we also have an automation that would determine when the event, which newsletter the event needs to be attached to. So if like the event is happening August 3rd, there's a formula that says we have to make sure people know about it 5 days in advance, attach it to a newsletter in advance. So every event that comes through gets attached to a newsletter in advance. So you can see these are our newsletters going forward through October.
My God.
Based on the content we have. These pieces of content are not necessarily all published, but they're harvested. So by basically saying we want to pull this in, GPT chat writes drafts for us, uses some Python code to determine when it needs to like basically pop back up for us. And then we publish day to day, and that's a way we can manage hundreds of news items at once.
Oh, so if you have something that's going to happen 3 weeks from now, you have it set up so that it'll resurface almost like it's snoozed until a certain window before the relevant date?
Yes, effectively.
Damn. Okay. I didn't know you had all that going on.
So what it's doing is saying there's like, if this event is, and we need to adjust this, but like if this event is 7 days out, attach it to this upcoming newsletter from like, a formula, the Thursday before the event. Or if the event is tomorrow, attach it to today's newsletter. And other sorts of filters. So events come in, news and events come in, they either get, they both get summarized in different ways by different chat assistant, by different API assistants. And then they get attached to newsletters if they're events. If they're not events, they're just regular news items. They don't get necessarily attached. And then our reporters and our team can attach them. So here's an example of a piece of content that was pulled in. Here is a post from 4-H. We pulled in the image as well as the text. We want to integrate like the image reading into the process so it could use that to summarize. As you can see here in the draft body, it's kind of doing its best with our template without really knowing what other information it should be able to provide. But like if we grab Patch Bloomfield, here's an article, here's the summary. That's too long for us. We would tighten it up. Here's the headline. So if someone comes in here, they see the content, they can open it through these formats. They see it in the art interface. They might be able to see an image from here. They come in here, they draft a body, they draft a headline, they draft event title. They determine the news section on the website and the newsletter. They determine content tags. So free event, paid event, date, those things do things going down the line.
Zapier's watching for those filtered views in those filtered views. And when those tagged or tags appear in an entry or a record, they're automatically displayed in those different filtered views. And then Zapier takes action based on what's in there.
What those three things do is that there is a I forgot what it is in Zapier, but the formula where like if this is in this field, do replace it with this.
Right. Yeah.
So
the inserts, the
paid
variables.
events, yeah, paid events appear as a $sign. Free events say free. Date is just the blank for price.
Okay.
So a dated event might be like an application is due. It's not necessarily a free event, but it's something that we want to have a date associated with. And then we have these particular content tag category tags, which allow us to categorize in the events calendar on our website, and also create dedicated feeds of news around these issues on the website. So that like if something is an event, but it's in local government, it's still appearing there. So often those will be like, you know, things happen at a town council meeting and or community forum happening. And volunteering and activism. So it's basically allows us to pull events and hard news into a single feed on our site. So these are each sections we have on our site, and then a human determines them. Here we could attach it to the newsletter if we'd like, and then we submit it for further processing. And then another human reviews it here. Here's an example of a draft body, edited news headline. If it has a start date, end date, it's event.
Scroll back up real quick. Scroll back up real quick. So this column here, this is the original. This is the drafted stuff from the bot, and then this is where they can make any human touches.
No, this is the draft. So this is in here unprocessed.
Unprocessed. Okay.
Means that basically like the bot wrote it.
Okay. So this is the original. This is the bot.
Yeah.
And then they can edit that.
When I move in here, this is the original. This is the bot edited by a human.
Got it.
And then here's the final copy that we're going to push.
Okay, so they can put final touches if they need to.
And we can hit duplicate all, and it duplicates these different fields. You could pass on the newsletter. You could attach it to a newsletter here.
When you say pass, you mean like it's not going to make it into the final newsletter?
Yeah.
And then where does it go? What is it? It goes into like it's
limbo.
Garbage. Okay. Yeah. Okay. What do you mean by duplicate? What do you mean? Like duplicate it to different newsletters?
It duplicates the draft body and the draft headline and the draft event title.
Where does that duplicate go? And what do you?
Oh, so like it might not be like, see in this case, there's no edited body and there's no edited news headline.
Yeah.
I don't know how this one got in, but like here's another one. So what I could do is duplicate and then hit duplicate.
And it just puts it into the edited event title so that you can make changes.
Yeah.
Oh.
Or just push it forward. Right.
Got it.
And then I hit, if I can give feedback to the producer here, that appears in Slack. I can change the source, change tags. I determine which newsletter it's going to go to here.
Okay.
And then I could also determine whether or not I want this to be the thing I publish to Instagram.
Okay. Okay,
Uh,
so that's insane. All of this is insane.
that's
Not
one
least of
news
which,
item
not least of which is this gorgeous dashboard.
just for processing one news item.
Got it.
We can then take a look at like what do we have in the pipeline and for which communities. Um, and then this is just a source review process. Then for newsletter publishing, so one thing we do is we review draft. We have all these news items that have appeared, but they've been attached to a newsletter, but they haven't necessarily been reviewed and published. So here we can review newsletters by newsletter. So like the yellow is halfway through, it's not ready. Red has not been approved. Red has not been approved. I think just red and yellow. Okay, so we're harvesting. A lot of the stuff is basically like the first, Olivia's eyes see it to determine it's useful, and then it gets seen by bots, and then the bots place it, run drafts, do all these things. They also double check for duplicates.
Interesting.
Because one human can't possibly remember every piece of content they see.
Sure.
So like,
Well, so you just submitted two very simple, almost identical duplicates. How does that manifest?
It doesn't work for hard news at the moment because right now the way it works is that it double checks against dates. So it's specifically for events like
Oh, I
news.
see. So
News
there's
is
no
easier to
duplicate calendar
remember.
events.
Yeah,
Got it.
yeah. So there's no duplicate calendar events. So here's an example. This news item was flagged as a potential duplicate. What this does is that it looks at the start date of the event. It goes to our Airtable. It sees, are there events on that start date? If they are, show them to chat. Chat looks at them, compares them to the draft that chat wrote for this content and says, hey, is this potentially a duplicate? And if it is, it flags it here. And then we just hit this little waste bin and it gets chucked.
So how did you set that up did you say like, give me a confidence score of how likely this is to be a duplicate and anything over 85% or whatever is flagged?
I said, if you think it's a duplicate, tell me.
Oh. And how does it tell you?
If you look at it, because I basically say, here is, because what I do is like, we use the Airtable API, we pull a list of all of the records we have with that date. So in this case, it's August 9th.
Okay.
And it gave us a list of all those records and all of the content in those records. I asked chat, we have this new entry, compare it to all of our old records. Is there anything in there that looks like it might be a duplicate, whatever language I use?
And it's pulling what, like the last 7 days, or is it, what do you mean say compared to all of our entries? Not all 4,000 or whatever, right?
It looks at all of the entries on August 9th.
Oh, got it. Okay.
Yeah. So it looks at literally like, okay, that date, right? That's a very specific thing.
Yeah.
Is there anything that sounds like it could be a duplicate of this event? And it doesn't, 80 to 90% of the time it gets it. And sometimes we have to still catch something. But it's not the worst thing in the world.
Yeah,
but
way fewer catches than you would have to do without it. Got it.
Yeah, it does the deduping for us. Then we go into, so that's where chat does a lot of the work for us. It drafts, it stages stuff, it compares for duplication. There's some like code we have running to do the dates and stuff.
And you wrote that code, or did chat write that code?
Chat wrote it. Chat wrote it. I edited it. But then when we go to send a newsletter, this is what sending a newsletter looks like. We select the newsletter. You see total 30 attached, 30 of them need edits. I can go through and select what I want to go publish to Instagram when we publish the newsletter. Instagram uses it's Zapier pushes to HTML CSS app that puts the content in a template and then creates an image of that content to publish to Instagram. So our daily news card is automated.
Okay. Now we've gone through a lot of this, but I've been dying to get you to like show me the Zapier back.
Okay. Yeah, I can do that.
Because all the instructions is what I'm really interested in. How do you, because the way that I am trying to pitch this as the use for this layer of editorial assistance is literally that. So like either in a couple of different use cases. So if you want to do something repetitively with the text, but the text changes and you just want to explain it in plain language. Like one of the simple ones I do is I take a submission from a user in an Airtable form, and I hate the way all the different capitalization systems that they use. So I have Zapier format it to all lowercase, and then I have the bot just say, hey, turn this all lowercase into a sentence case headline. That
Oh, that's
way,
clever.
you know what I mean? I don't have to think of a complex formula that accounts for all these variables. It sort of helps me around the edges with the edge cases. You're using it in that's one way, is to use it as like a connective tissue where you don't know how to code that and you don't know how to fully explain it in every situation. So you just say, hey, this is what I want. Here's what I have. Get me to this point. That's one way. You're also using, you're kind of using that in the way of the deduping thing as well. You're kind of saying like, hey, I don't know how to write a code or a formula or whatever, or a script that will always do perfect deduping. So do your best to get as close to that as you can.
Well, because you can't do perfect deduping is
Right,
the other
exactly.
thing,
Yeah.
right? You can't
Yeah.
do perfect deduping. So it's like, fine. So here are my zaps.
Yeah. Show me the first one. Show me the summary one. Show me your summary one.
It's gonna take me a second to remember.
Yeah. Oh my God. You got oh my God. Okay.
So it comes in. This is where we determine is event or is news, right? That's where if it comes in with a date, it's an event. If it comes in without a date, it's news.
Okay.
We have summarized events.
Okay, so you give it the content, you say use this as the start date, use this as the end date, put event titles in quotes. Okay.
Yep. I ask it to extract the first sentence.
Oh, and this is unstructured. This is not a conversation ChatGPT request. This is
the first one is an assistant.
First
one is an assistant, and then this one I just ask it to. I have a very specific task that I need to do, which is extract the sentence.
Okay.
Without its punctuation mark, which you can do pretty well. Code by Zapier, remove punctuation from first sentence for headline. This is how we do the draft news headline. Is that we just kind of pull that first sentence. If it's an event, event title writer, put event titles in quotation marks, write an event title for this.
And okay, but you already asked it to do that, all of that in that first step. Why do you have three?
I asked it to summarize the event.
Okay.
And I want to pull out each piece.
Okay.
So I need a summary, then I need a headline, then I need a title.
And that's all pulling from the same thing. You're like, it's going back and you're saying, give me the first sentence. Then you're saying, give me the summary. Then you're saying, whatever.
It goes. So 4 pulls from the original, summarize the event.
Okay.
5 pulls from 4.
From the summary.
6,
okay.
Yeah. 6 pulls from 5.
Yep.
And then the event's title is the first sentence. Also 7 pulls from 5. So we create a summary. We take the first sentence and we use that first sentence from the headline and the event title.
Oh, okay. And then it goes back to Airtable down here.
And then it goes to Airtable, updates a bunch of shit.
Okay. Show me real quick. Show me your assistant, because you're using an assistant, not the base chat API. You've given it structured. You've given it assistant instructions.
So basic.
Yeah. Okay. Instructions here. Let's big in that a little real quick with this little button here.
Nice.
Okay. Oh, that's super simple. Okay. You compare new events to existing events, flag duplicates. If something seems like a duplicate, you output a message using the following template event. Okay. And you got some structured outputs here. Okay. Beautiful. Now, why did you have to create an assistant for that? Why not just use a Zap conversation with and put that in the instruction? Oh, okay. So it's not, you didn't like arrive at this because the other one didn't work.
I would, my general preference would be to run everything through assistants where I could find, because I think that we were building this was like, how much fine tuning does this thing need? And if it needs like to be steady, then we need an assistant. If it could be flexible because it's doing a very particular task, it doesn't need to be. So in this case, I think, for me, the formatting is really important because it appears in Slack a certain way. I have no particular reason why this.
No, I think that's good. I think that's good. If only because basically you're doing the same. You could do the exact same thing in Zapier because you're allowed to add additional instructions to, a Zapier conversation. That's how I do it. But if I
Right.
wanted to take that assistant API and plug it into something like make.com or write my own script, pull requests and everything, I could just
Yeah,
call the API for that assistant.
it
And then
feels more scalable.
you can also track API tokens for that
Yeah.
particular assistant. So I think that's a better, more long-term view approach to it. So I just wasn't sure if you had tried it in Zapier and then, run into issues and then realized, you know what? No, I'm just going to do this in as an assistant itself. Okay. So that's amazing. So then bring me back to
This is
Zapier.
this is an event summarizer. I just want to show you a couple of the other
Yeah. Yeah.
things
Yeah. Yeah.
here.
Go ahead.
So this is event summarizer. You summarize events using a particular template. You do not make up any information. Here is the template. It still makes up stuff
It
sometimes,
still
but it's
does.
okay.
Yeah.
That's okay. Event name planned by on event date. The event scheduled from start time will feature list main activities. Registration is required. It can be completed with method by registration deadline in mmm.d format if one exists. So this one is like
Now it does mmm.d. It'll be like Jan 2nd.
Jan period second.
And
Yeah,
if it's Jan 14, it does DD, right? It
it
doesn't.
does. Yeah, it does two Ds.
Okay.
Yeah,
But if you
and
put
that's
DD originally, it'll be like Jan 02.
yes, correct.
And you don't want that. Okay,
Yeah,
cool.
correct. I think what else is here? News article summarizer.
Yeah, here's one. I'm surprised these instructions are so short.
I was also doing this when I didn't have access to Pro. I was still, I think, under $100 in usage or some shit.
It's $1, isn't
So
it?
whatever you are, a dollar,
Yeah.
which is like in ChatGPT, in OpenAI terms, like how much can you
It's
possibly
like a
get?
million. It's like a
It's
million
so
requests or
much.
something.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
So they were pretty short, and because I know I could add other context and stuff, and I want to, especially for the news because it doesn't do that one very well at all. We have a copy editor that I was working with to copy edit stuff too. Um, but that is, and then the events title writer, it's very straightforward. Okay, so I'm back in Zapier. The
Okay,
same
yeah. So
thing
we did
happens for
this. We
news.
did the event one. The
Yeah,
news one is relatively similar, but shorter, it seems, obviously, because you don't have to
correct,
worry about the dates and stuff as much.
correct.
Okay. So path conditions here, this is telling you like this is a filter. Is path conditions a filter? Or is that just like this here?
Yeah, it's a filter, is events, is
Got it.
news. So I'm
Okay.
going to open that. If the start date does not exist, it's an event. It's
Oh,
rather, it's
okay. Okay.
news.
Cool. Okay. So then it goes to the summarize and then extract the
Summarize,
first
extract,
sentence. Okay.
same thing.
Remove function.
I'll,
Okay.
I'll
And
take the
so
record.
that's how you get to that news summary draft, that draft summary that appears in the Airtable interface, which then it's back over to a human.
That's correct.
Okay.
That's how we get to review on
This
process.
thing here. Yeah.
This is what review on process gets us.
Got it.
This is the draft body for this, which is not bad. We just have very particular styles. I think it's something I'd say about our writing. It's not bad most of the time.
Because I
Um,
remember when you and I were first talking about, troubleshooting how to put this together, it seemed like you had you have a very specific editorial style and structure. And I just imagined you having like a laundry list of custom instructions and rules, but you found that you've been able to get it down to like a one paragraph with some brackets.
um, I would add more custom instructions and rules. We have style guides that we just haven't added because
Okay.
it adds complexity. But the other thing I would say is that we adapt. I think that we leaned into the length that chat kept consistently outputting. We wanted shorter, curter stuff, but we realized that that wasn't going to be a consistent output. So then we started experimenting with like 4 or 5 sentence long summaries and finding that those were still very useful and good, and like
And you could
figuring
just
out.
cut 2 or 3 sentences and leave the
Well,
best ones.
no, we could just like we could still do we could do longer summaries because now we
Okay.
could pull a draft. Because the thing is that this thing was the draft body previously was also the headline because it was hard to scale a lot of those small editorial processes. So like as soon as chat could read this paragraph and give me a headline, and that was something I didn't have to do. I didn't care about how long it was. Like I cared now about the quality of the product. So I think chat allowed us to have a longer, more useful news brief length.
Okay. Okay.
Um,
Okay, so that's getting it into Airtable, or getting it into the interface and the draft summary. I don't know why I just imagined this to be so much more complex. I think the thing that's blowing my mind, the complexity of it, is the number one, all the Airtable views in that one base, that like there's like 180 different views on the left side of your actual data. No. Curation. Yeah, that.
Yeah, yeah. Well,
I
because
mean,
each
that's
one of
just because
these,
you have all the different regions and stuff. Yeah, yeah,
well,
yeah.
no, well, because each one of these does trigger something,
Right.
right? Because then a news item appears in Belleville, and it will get pulled to the Belleville newsletter as a result.
Okay, and then
Um,
is that a digest situation that's going on there, or and
yes,
then you release the digest in Zapier? You like you're building a list of things since the last push, and then once you're good, you push that digest to Mailchimp, right?
yes.
Oh my goodness.
So I just want to highlight this one. This is in our, that one's straightforward, right?
Yeah.
Digest news items, design them a certain way, get them somewhere. Slack alert if in news production. So this is what happens when in Airtable we say this is good to go.
Okay.
We'll start with event because it's longer. So new edited event item. So it's ready to go, move forward. We pick a random featured image. We pull the featured image key from WordPress. So we can upload, we can determine which image will show up. So here are the regions, categories, free or not. This is where I was mentioning date, paid. It's an event, so it's going to go through the events calendar first. The event title, description, start date, the image that we selected, the cost, the categories. We're going to update the Airtable record with the event URL. But then if it is one of these 4 categories that we feel is really important, it's going to keep going. So if it's one of these 4 categories, it will do the same thing, but on a different set of lookup numbers because it's a different, like the first lookup numbers was for the events calendar. This is now for WordPress. It's going to do the same thing for news section, content, WordPress. And WordPress is going to spit out a similar structure as the event, but now it's going to link directly to the event listing as well. So people could find the event listing there in our calendar. Updates in Airtable. So that is when we publish from this interface and we say publish and stage. It goes through, if it's an event, it goes through this process. If it's a news item, it goes through a shorter process.
Okay, now show me how you do images out of this. What does that look like?
You mean for Instagram?
Yeah, for Instagram.
Publish Instagram cards and that's older.
Okay.
Instagram.
Oh, I got it. Okay.
We used to delay it so that we could publish several the next day, but we just have been sticking to one at 7 p.m.
Okay, so this
So
is taking your Instagram view from Airtable and
yep.
going, it sees that, identify the headline and character length.
So depending on the length of the headline, we're going to determine the
font
size of the font.
You did all these?
This I hired out. This I needed someone with a front end development experience, and I think cost like $500.
Okay, so they just assessed what the ranges are.
I gave them. We went back and
That
forth
wrote
about
this, or they wrote
yeah,
this.
they wrote this.
Okay.
Yeah, they wrote this.
And that's just a filter, basically. If the character limit is X, then select font size range 1, 2, 3, or 4, or 5. Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
Then select color template. This is just a random one. This determines what colors will appear depending on what it grabs. There's the different color codes.
Are these tables in Zapier? You're using Zapier tables for this?
I'm not using Zapier tables.
Where is it getting this table, or is this part of the
I put it in here. I put it in Zap.
Oh, so you have the option to add lookup code tables.
Yeah. I know that there's been advancements to Zap that I need to like.
I mean, if it works, it's fine. Yeah. Okay.
I mean, yeah,
Well,
but the tables does sound like, I think tables would actually help with newsletter production because right now we're producing 12 different newsletters every time, and it's kind of like heavy to have to publish 12. Like I can't imagine if we have to publish 22 or 25 a day.
Yeah.
And I think it might just produce some efficiency. But anyway, so then picks a code. uppercase the news section title because it appears a certain place, format the date for us in the way we want it for the thing. Here's the code for HTML to CSS.
Interesting. You're literally hard coding HTML and CSS. You're not using actually image designer. You're doing CSS over here to make images that are then basically screenshotted and
Yep.
create and exported as images.
Yep. We tag the WordPress post because we have that CMS and Airtable, so we know which post it is. So when you go to our jerseyb.com/Instagram page, content from our Instagram will automatically be there without a human having to, tag it or to put it there. And then it goes out at 7. We could probably do a delay and a digest and do more of them. But it publishes a photo, and that looks like this or this.
So the colors are random.
Yeah.
The color, I always thought that the colors would be associated with different categories. Like local news, whatever would be orange, events are blue or whatever. Interesting.
No, one of the things is that the code in there, there's like 4 of them have white, 4 of the 10 have white backgrounds, and then the little tag color changes appear.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah.
So that's why they tend to be white. But there's black.
Oh, so the
random
color choice applies to both the little flag and the background.
Yeah, and the logo.
And the logo. Oh, yeah, because you have a couple of different versions of the logo.
Yeah,
okay, so what I'm seeing, but this stuff like that, by the way, hold on, stuff like this and stuff like this, those are design. You guys make these, obviously.
Yeah, we made these. I mean,
those are manual posts. You just post
handmade manual posts. I mean, we also have a thing.
You have templates in Canva and stuff.
No, we have a thing in Slack where you can drop an image, and I can just auto post by clicking an emoji.
What? Okay.
Yeah, I mean, it's just respond to this
trigger
thing.
response. Yeah.
Trigger response. An editor needs to look at this before it goes up on Instagram. Why do they have to go to Meta Business Suite?
Right.
Another human could type it.
The worst
could look at it.
CMS and platform ever is.
Yeah. So we've just how much of our publishing can get out of WordPress? Can we get out of the CMSs that everyone's using to be able to effectively curate and redistribute all this stuff? So that's why we have to build our own CMS.
Yeah. So I'm not actually seeing a super heavy reliance on multiple generative AI or ChatGPT processes. It seems more like it's this very thin but crucial layer that allows the rest of it to go much smoother. And speed up. So whether it's
that's correct.
Yeah. So whether it's getting a draft summary or doing some minor formatting tweaks or extracting a sentence and putting around, it's not big high stakes things. It's just things that are really annoying that you have to do a lot of times that over time take up a bunch of your day, that you can now offload that step or steps and then get it back into the human hands to just make sure it's good.
Yeah, no, we're doing it. It's not it's not going to write articles.
Right, exactly.
We have a very particular scalable use case for it, where the thing it's helping us do is reduce friction in our production process.
Right.
Where we're producing thousands of news briefs. Our team of 1.5 are producing thousands of news briefs a year, distributing them to 12 communities every day, publishing on Instagram, publishing on WordPress, publishing on the events calendar. And we can do that because there's enough overlap, obviously, with the content for the communities, but also
the amount of clicks and new tabs
amount
you
of
have to have open.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. The duplicate checker, the writing event. Honestly, the events are write themselves, right? That's literally if 50 to 60% of our content is events. Let's say I don't remember what the number is, but right. I don't think it's something like that. I think it's 30 to 50%. That's 50% content we don't have to write.
Yeah.
And then I think the other thing I want to mention is that this method allows us to produce a general news product over that allows us to then build a general local news audience instead of a very topic specific one or one for a very hyper local community. We're able to sort of serve 12 siloed media markets with a centralized news product and process that allows us to build some of the economies of scale we need to drive revenue, advertising, engagement, civic participation do all the other social impact. So it is, I would say, like a lot of the conversations about AI have been like, oh, this is a great tool. How do we use it? Like there has to be a very specific application for its use. Otherwise, I think the newsroom is just like,
Yeah, you're just messing around at that
you're
point.
just
You're not
messing
actually.
around. Like you got to copy
This is
everything.
this is the central argument of this guide that I'm writing, is that you don't, like, unless you have a solid process or processes existing, like unless your structure is in place, your documentation, your workflow and your process, adding or experimenting with these generative tools isn't going to do shit. It's just going to distract you with, playing around and tweaking and experimenting. You have to have an underlying substructure that you can layer. You can, if you want, layer in certain areas this filter that things will go through that can take up, or that can, reduce the number of clicks or amount of time spent on a particular monotonous or repetitive task. But if the substructure is not there, then it's nothing. There's no point.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's it.